Back to politics. Presidential candidate Donald Trump spoke to members of the Great Faith International Ministries in Detroit today, addressing his new age civil rights agenda, which includes a focus on education, community safety, and jobs. So will Trump's message resonate with Detroit and its community? Let's check in with Detroit Free Press political reporter Kathleen Gray. She's on site at Great Faith Ministries. Thank you so much for joining us, Kathleen. You know, we've seen pundits say, you know, Donald Trump needs to do more than just talk the talk. He needs to walk the walk. And that is what he did today. He laid out a roadmap on exactly what he envisions. Can you tell me how people there are receiving that message?
You know, he got a very gracious reception from the audience. They started out by singing and praying and praising. So they were in that spiritual mode. So they got a very gracious reception. And Pastor Jackson, who interviewed him before Donald Trump came out to speak, said, you know, we may not agree, but we have to love each other. And that's what his congregation showed today.
There's been quite a bit of criticism for what Donald Trump has said in the past while trying to reach out to African-American communities. He can point to the status quo and say it isn't working, but do you feel as if he addressed the issues that men and women in some of these communities really wanted to hear?
Well, I mean, he gave a very short remarks. It was only about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes long, so he didn't have time to really lay out a plan. He did talk a little bit about education and school choice. He talked about infrastructure jobs and the need to get jobs to people. But, I mean, he didn't lay out a whole lot of specifics today.
Okay.
But, you know, those are the things that people are wanting to hear.
I want to look at some historical numbers and run them by you. In 2012, Romney received about 6% of the African-American vote. Then back up to 2008, John McCain, about 4%. Some of the recent polling that we have has Donald Trump polling around 4%. Certainly there are some that show him a little bit lower and a little bit higher. Keep in mind of the margin of error at the bottom of your screen. Some of these folks are saying that this is generational. They've been voting Democrat for years and years and years. Do you feel like that candidates have a chance right now to change that, the GOP candidates I'm speaking of?
Sure, there's always that possibility. It was more of an older crowd at the church today, so I'm not sure how many of those millennial type of voices he reached. But in Detroit, those numbers are even worse. In 2012, Romney got 2% of the vote, and in 2008, John McCain got 3% of the vote. So in Detroit, it's a little bit different. The margins are much more slim for a Republican candidate, and that's Republican candidates all up and down the ticket.
Well, you talked about Detroit being different, but you also talked about the crowd being, you said, an older generation. When you talk about getting the young folks, the millennials in Detroit, how do you get them excited about this election cycle?
You know, it's kind of hard because I've talked with a lot of African Americans here in Detroit, and they're not very excited about either candidate, frankly. So I'm not quite sure what you do to get them more excited. There were a lot of protests planned here at the church also, and they were registered. The Clinton campaign and Democrats were registering voters outside of the church. So perhaps that's a way to get people in by getting them registered to vote and making sure that they come out to the polls. I know that our Secretary of State is going to be doing mobile voter registration offices at all the campuses around Michigan. So that's another way to try to get the millennials more excited, and we'll see if that works.
All right, Kathleen, we only have about 10 seconds left, but I do want to ask you about those protests. I know you were inside the church. Was there still a large presence when you left the church?
Yes, there was. There were people who were standing waiting to catch a glimpse of Donald Trump as he left the church, and so they were lining the streets around the church, and they seem to have all gone now because Mr. Trump is gone. He's gone to Ben Carson's old home in southwest Detroit. He's headed there to check out the neighborhood. All
right, Kathleen Gray, thank you so much for your reporting. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Sure. Thank you.